What's up, people? Now, this probably looks a little different because normally I only use my smartphone for video podcasts that are either Patreon exclusive videos or when I'm doing a live stream interview on somebody else's YouTube channel. But I decided to do this free video with my smartphone because normally I record my videos on my webcam, on my laptop webcam. But for this video, I'm using my smartphone to see if there's any difference. So first, let me get this out the way. Wait. See, now this is different from my webcam, so I'm kind of getting confused here. Zevia, baby. Best sugar-free soda pop ever. And just so you know, for those people worried about my kidneys, carbonated water does not have a detrimental effect on your kidneys. The only time soda pop is bad for you is when it's a sugar-related soda pop, or it has one of those really bad artificial sweeteners like aspartame. You never want to consume aspartame. That's the worst artificial sweetener out there, is aspartame. The best artificial sweetener, or really is actually a natural sweetener, is stevia extract. Stevia extract. That's what this has. It has stevia extract. And that's why I love this stuff. Okay, you know what? Well, first of all, I want to thank my Patreon followers and subscribers and supporters, financial supporters, as well as the handful of PayPal donation supporters I have. I've been on, well, as you know, first thing I want to say is Thursday will mark my 1-year anniversary doing YouTube podcasts. It will mark my 1-year anniversary. I did my very first video podcast on the recommendation of my friend in Poland, black man in Poland, O'Shea Duke Jackson. He's the #1 person responsible for me coming to YouTube and doing video podcasts. And I did my first video podcast on April 5th of 2017. April 5th of 2017. So I'm going to have a Patreon exclusive anniversary show on Thursday at 4 o'clock Eastern. 4 o'clock Eastern on my Patreon channel. But I wanted to say, speaking of Patreon, I had my highest number of Patreon subscribers in the month of March last month, and I had my highest amount of financial support from Patreon subscribers last month. So I want to thank you. Alan Roger Currie has a lot of love, respect, and appreciation for all of my Patreon subscribers. Because, you know, it's funny. I sometimes have people throw jabs at me on my free videos. People say, oh, Alan, you know, sometimes you come across as egotistical and narcissistic and this and that and that and this. See, I don't get any negative feedback from my Patreon subscribers. Now, I've had a handful of disagreements on stuff I've said. So I've had people just, you know, who have expressed what I would call a philosophical disagreement to something I've said. But as far as like, you know, just straight up hating, you know, just people hurling personal jabs at me or comments and criticisms that are representative of haterade, I don't get that on my Patreon. And the other thing that my Patreon subscribers love about me, I don't really do videos, Patreon exclusive videos that involve me ranting or rambling for an extensive length of time or harshly admonishing guys. I don't do those type of videos for Patreon exclusive. Okay, I see my smartphone getting fuzzy. I don't like that. I'm looking at the Mode 1 in the background. And it looks fuzzy. Why is it fuzzy? See, I don't like that, man. That bothers me. That's probably why I do my webcam. Anyway, now, see, speaking of Patreon and financial support, I got to call out somebody. I got to call out another YouTube personality. I got to call him out. And I'm going to boldly take credit. Yes, I am. Alan Roger Currie, I'm going to boldly take credit. Now, as you know, over the last 2-3 weeks or so, if not a little longer, well, actually a little longer than that. It goes back to December of last year. There's a YouTube personality who goes by the initials AMS. You guys know, the ones familiar with him know who I'm talking about. AMS. Now, see, some people have come in my comment section saying, hey, Alan, you know, I hate to see two black male YouTube personalities beefing with each other and, you know, taking jabs at each other. How come everybody can't just get along and help each other out? And I mentioned O'Shea Duke Jackson. Like, I'm going to echo O'Shea Duke Jackson's sentiments. O'Shea Duke Jackson, he did a video not too long ago where he was talking about how he has his own share of haters and critics. But he said, if there's one thing people can't say about me, can't take away from me or criticize me about, is that I've put money in other black men's pockets. You know, I hire writers for the Negro Manosphere. I give guys money for YouTube videos and this and that. And he has, man. O'Shea Duke Jackson, you know, a percentage of my income last year in 2017 was because of being a writer on his website called thenegromanosphere.com. Matter of fact, I got a new article today that I'll put in the comment section below. New article today that I'll put in the comment section below. And, but yeah, he's put money in my pocket. But anyway, here's what I'm going to say about AMS. AMS has taken his jabs at me. And I've probably taken 1 or 2 jabs back at him. But he did promote one of my books on his channel, The Beta Male Revolution. He promoted that book on his YouTube channel and encouraged his followers to purchase that ebook, paperback, or audiobook version of that book. But here's where I'm going to take some credit for AMS, man. Back in January, when me and AMS first started going back and forth with each other, I said, man, why do you have a Patreon page if you're doing nothing but free videos? That don't even make sense. I said, if you're going to have a Patreon page, because at the time he had like 19 Patreon followers. 19. That's literally how many he had. He had 19 Patreon followers. And I said, dude, here's what you need to do. You need to have a percentage of your videos just be Patreon exclusive videos. And then have another percentage that's free videos, which is what I do. I have a percentage that's free and a percentage of my videos that are Patreon exclusive videos. And I told him to do the same thing. I said, you need to follow my blueprint. And I guarantee you, the number of Patreon subscribers you attract is going to increase. He actually balked at that at the time. I want to say this was like mid to late January. He was like, oh man, one of the reasons I got tens, thousands of YouTube subscribers is because I give guys advice and information for free, man. I ain't trying to charge people money. One of the reasons why my followers love me is because I give them advice for free. But I was like, then you're not a businessman then. You're just a motherfucker on YouTube talking shit. You're not a businessman. Because if you was a true businessman, then you're going to have a percentage of your videos be pay-per-view or Patreon exclusive. And again, he balked it. This was about back in mid to late January. Guess who followed my blueprint over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks? And now his Patreon page is exploding with subscribers. And he know good and well he needs to give me at bare minimum 50% of the credit, if not more. He needs to give me 50%. Alan Roger Currie deserves at least 50% of credit for his Patreon page. Now this brother got over 200 Patreon subscribers. I don't know how much financial support that translates into because he has that private on his page. If you're on Patreon, you can hide the specific amount of financial support you're receiving from your subscribers, although mine is public. But yeah, I was the first one to tell him, man. I said, you need to have a percentage of your videos be Patreon exclusive. That's the only way you're going to build your Patreon page. And he does that now. Now, about 2/3 of his videos are Patreon exclusive videos. He only does a small percentage of free videos now. And now he got over 200 Patreon subscribers. He needs to do a video today called Thank You, Alan Roger Currie. Thank you. He needs to call me Big Bro. He might even go as far as to call me Dad. Thank you, Dad. Because I'm the one who helped this brother blow up his Patreon page. So AMS, you better not ever take a jab at me again. Ever. You better not ever think about taking a jab at me. Because, dude, you know good and well your Patreon page would not be what it is today if it wasn't for your Uncle Alan Roger Currie giving you that advice back in mid to late January. That you balked at. You was like, oh man, I don't need to charge people money. The reason my followers love me is because I'm giving them advice for free. Yeah, you ain't giving no free advice no more. I see your little Patreon exclusive videos you doing now at $1 a pop or $5 a pop. Shoot, you ain't doing no more free videos, exclusively free videos. So, yeah, man. Alan Roger Currie, again, deserves at least 50% of the credit for that shit. Just today, I became Facebook friends with a brother that I interviewed on my Blog Talk Radio show. I want to say his formal name is Carl E. Stevens Jr. And he goes by the name Rakim Sakul. And I was reading a Facebook post he wrote. And it was similar to something I said in a recent video of mine. He's basically talking about men's lack of objectivity, man. And if you remember about 2 or 3 videos ago, that's one of the things I was criticizing. Really, I criticize people, period. Not just men, but I criticize both men and women. But since most of my listeners and viewers are men, I mean, there's too many people, man, who lack objectivity. They don't look at things from both sides. They don't look at things from both sides. Like, for example, there's a lot of men that only evaluate today's dating scene strictly from a male perspective and what benefits them or has the potential to benefit them. And similarly, you have a lot of women out here that only evaluate today's dating scene strictly from a female perspective and what has the potential to benefit their needs and their interests. See, once you do that, that means you're a highly subjective person, or what's known as a biased person. That's what it means to be extremely biased or highly subjective, is when you look at things strictly from your own individual perspective, or you look at things strictly from your own gender's perspective. An objective person looks at things not only from their own perspective, but they look at things from other people's perspective. And in the case of men, an objective man is someone who looks at things, or at least tries to look at things also from a woman's perspective. So somebody brought, I was reading some comments, both public and private, on my last few videos. And at least one guy made the comment, he said, Alan, again, you know me, I paraphrase a lot of stuff if it's not directly in front of me. So I'm going to be paraphrasing this guy's words. But essentially he said, I wish the dating scene was like it was back in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. It seemed like society was a lot better, and that's because society centered predominantly around, monogamy-oriented relationships and monogamy-oriented marriages. But then these women, they pushed for feminism, and they had this sexual revolution bullshit. And now you got nothing but hoes and sluts in society, and it's ruined society, it's ruined the dating scene, it's lowered men's motivation to get married and raise a family and blah, blah, blah. Insert dog face here. That's bullshit. The follower who sent that feedback to me, I'm going to tell you, and I think I already told you through email, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. See, here's a simple, I'm as I always say, I'm going to try not to be too long. Hopefully this video won't be more than 45 minutes long, but we'll see. It might be. In simple terms, a strictly monogamy-oriented society does not benefit everybody. It doesn't. So for those men and even some women, because I've even heard women over the years, particularly older women, who say they wish dating was like it was, 60, 70, 80 years ago. Society wasn't great for everybody. Why do you think you had women who pushed for the second wave of feminism? If everything was perfect, why would women push for the second wave of feminism? That's your first red flag right there. And I wrote an article when I used to write for the Examiner.com. I wrote at least one article where I talked about some of the major factors that contributed to women pushing for the second wave of feminism. Life wasn't great for everybody back in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. For starters, it definitely wasn't great for black people. Shit, let's just get that out in the open. The 800-pound elephant in the room. Shit, the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, 1950s was not great for black people. But that's another subject for someone else's YouTube channel, because I don't really deal primarily with racial issues. But I just had to throw that out there. So for all those people saying, man, life was so great before the 1960s, no, it wasn't. And not for black people, it wasn't. Shit. Shit. Number two, even for white people, man, and particularly certain types of white women, the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s wasn't like this perfect utopia. I don't know why you all think that, particularly as it relates to monogamy. Here's a simple deal, man. I like to use a lot of island examples. So I'm going to use an island example to demonstrate my point. Hold on one second. Okay. Let's say you had an island. And let's say you had 10,000 single men and women on that island. Let's say you had 10,000 single men and women on that island. Okay? You got that? And let's say, just for simplistic purposes, you had 5,000 single heterosexual men and 5,000 single heterosexual women. and let's say they all connected with one person. Excuse me, burp number 2, I think that is. Burp number 3. Let's say you had 5,000 men, 5,000 women. Man, this smartphone throwing me off, man. I'm not used to doing my pre-recorded videos on my smartphone. I only do my Patreon exclusive live streams and when I do live stream interviews on my smartphone, but I wanted to try it out for today. But yeah, see, that would be ideal if on that island you had 5,000 men and 5,000 women, and they all coupled up, then there would be really no major problems. But let's be real. In real life, how many times are you going to have a city, a state, or a country that's going to have exactly the same number of single men and the same number of single women? Be real. That almost never happens. That almost never happens. In just about every single city in the world and every single country in the world, there's going to be a surplus. You either going to have more women than you have men, or you're going to have more men than you have women. Like, for example, in the United States, if there's one state I know of where I want to say there's more single men than single women is Alaska. Alaska actually has more single men than it does single women. I know for a period of time, I don't know if it's still this way, but San Diego was like that as a city. San Diego was one of the few cities in the United States where there were more single men between the age of 18 and 49 than there were single women. See, when you have a situation like that, that's when men are going to be hyped to get married. Shoot, anytime you got men living in a city or any type of social environment where there's significantly more single men than single women, that's when men are going to be more interested in marriage. They're going to be like, shoot, I got to snatch me up a woman. And vice versa. Anytime there's a social environment where there's significantly more women than there are men, then that's when women are going to be more hyped to get married. So just on numbers alone, let's go back to my island example. Let's say instead of an even 5,000 men and 5,000 women, let's say you had 2,500 single heterosexual men and 7,500 single heterosexual women. How could a monogamous society on that island work? I'll wait. It would never work. It would never work. Why? For simple numbers. If that island was to promote the idea of monogamous marriage, then that means you would have 5,000 women just left out in the cold. Because 2,500 men would hook up with 2,500 women, and that would leave another 5,000 women just out in the cold. Matter of fact, I remember a few years ago, I read this article. They were interviewing these women from some country in Africa. And I apologize, I don't remember the article. It was years ago. I don't remember the specific country. But I remember it was a country in Africa. And whatever country it was a country where polygamy was legal. And they had significantly more women than men. And what these women argued was they were totally against the idea of monogamous marriage. Like, you would think, like a lot of men, I've talked about this before, I have this mistaken assumption that all women love monogamy. That's not true. Because this article I read, this is probably like 7 or 8 years ago, these women from this African country were saying that they actually consider monogamy sinful. Yep. They actually consider monogamy sinful. For the simple fact that they said, similar to that island example I gave, they basically said, if you have a country where you have, say, 2 million men and 5 million women, then if everybody was to aspire to be in a monogamous relationship, that would mean that 3 million women would just be out in the cold. 3 million women would just be out in the cold. So just on numbers alone, man, monogamy doesn't work for everybody. See, okay, now let me give you the recap. You know, in my book, Who Said Again, I divide women from a 1 to a 5. A 5 is a very prudish, strictly monogamy-oriented good girl. A 1 is a woman who's openly promiscuous and polyamorous, and 2s, 3s, and 4s represent the shades of gray in between those two extremes. Here's the deal, man. The way United States society was before the 1960s was like this. It didn't benefit everybody, particularly on the female end. It didn't benefit everybody. Here's who a monogamy-oriented society benefited. It benefited, on the male end, it benefited a lot of beta males. That's why beta males are most frustrated, romantically and sexually frustrated in today's society. Because back in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, when society, at least United States society, predominantly centered around monogamous relationships, monogamous marriages, beta males on the male end benefited from that. And on the female end, the only real type of woman that benefited from that was women who were young, beautiful, attractive 5s. That's the only women who really benefited from the way society was in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and 50s. It's women who were young, beautiful 5s. Like, if I had to be biased, my mother's in that category. If I was to show y'all a picture of my mother, I don't know if I'll find a picture to put up, but if I do, my mother, now of course I'm giving a biased opinion because I'm her son, so of course I think she's beautiful. But my mother was fine, dude. My mother, when she was young, at the time she met my father, she was a young, beautiful 5. She was a virgin up until the day she got married. And yeah, man, she was a young, beautiful 5. A lot of women were in my mother's day. They were 5s, man. That's what most women were, man. On my scale from 1 to 5, most women were 5s, man. They were prudish, strictly monogamy-oriented good girls who were saving themselves for their husband. Matter of fact, my mother, when she was in college, her friends told me her nickname was the Elegant Prude. That was her nickname in college. Everybody, all the guys knew that if they went out on a date with my mother, that they weren't going to get no tongue kiss. They weren't going to be able to make out with her. My mother was just not that type of girl, man, because she had real strict parents, man. Again, my mother, it wasn't like my mother was an anomaly, though, in her period. Most women came from, at least women from middle class, upper middle class families, you know, their parents weren't going to allow them to be engaged in any type of premarital sex or promiscuous sex. That was like unheard of back in the day. And so my mother, man, I mean, she was a young, attractive 5. But those are the main women who benefited from a society that's centered around monogamy. But on the flip side, let's say you are older 5, a woman who was in 45, 50, 55 years old, and your husband was tempted to dump you for a younger 5. Old school society didn't benefit you if you were in that category. If you were a young, attractive woman who was a 1, what they called back in the day a harlot or a tramp, which is the old school terms for hoe and slut, you were known back in the day, if you were a 1, you would be known as a harlot or a tramp. Old school society didn't benefit harlots and tramps. So don't act like the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s benefited everybody, because it didn't. It didn't. A monogamy oriented society did not benefit everybody. And again, particularly on the female end. And again, that's one of the reasons why women, different factions of women, began to push for what is known as the second wave of feminism, because a lot of them were frustrated. And I wrote an article when I used to write for the examiner.com that's centered on this. Basically, I highlighted two frustrated women. I said the two major women who were frustrated in society prior to the 1960s were women who were fives that were being cheated on a regular, semi-regular basis by their husbands because of that surplus of women. That surplus of women. Yeah, a lot of women who were fives were being cheated on by their husbands. And along with that, even worse, you had a lot of men that once a woman would get to the age of 45, 50, 55, a lot of men, particularly men with money, they would dump their older wives for a younger wife. And you wonder why the divorce laws are the way they are now, where women can clean up if a man divorces them or dumps them for a younger woman. Nowadays, women can clean up. And you don't want to know what? To a certain extent, they should be able to clean up. I mean, think about it, man. If you was a woman and you didn't work, you were just a housewife, a stay-at-home mother and housewife, and you spent all this time raising you and your husband's 3 children. You know, you sacrificed any career of your own to stay at home and nurture the children, raise them. And then once all your 3 children became grown adults, your husband just dumped you for a woman that was like 30 years younger with a hot body. Come on, man. See, this is where you got to be objective. That's fucked up. I mean, really, that's fucked up. Especially if the woman wasn't going to have no quality of life financially. You know, she would end up struggling financially once she got divorced. That's fucked up, man. I'm sorry, man. Y'all could call me a male feminist or whatever, or a defender of women, but that's a fucked up situation for a woman back in the day. If she invested all that time nurturing and raising her 3 children, only for her husband, when she hit the age of 45, 50, or 55, he just dumps her for a younger woman. So those women were frustrated. So again, you had women who were being cheated on that were frustrated in the old school society. You had women who were being dumped by their husbands for younger women. Women who were highly promiscuous that were frustrated because they really couldn't earn money other than through prostitution. They couldn't get no decent job because none of the guys were going to marry them because of their promiscuous reputations. And they really couldn't go out and get a good job of their own because society wasn't like that back in the day. Society wasn't like that. So a lot of women turned to prostitution. So for all you guys who say, hey, man, I wish we could go back to society the way it was in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, you ain't going to have a lot of support from everybody, particularly on the female end. Society wasn't great for them. And again, even on the male end, you had some frustrated alpha males, man. Well, alpha males are still going to get theirs in by cheating, but I mean, now, let's switch to the opposite end. Some people might say, well, Alan, I agree with you, man. I think a society where promiscuity is allowed, endorsed, and condoned, and polyamory is allowed, endorsed, and condoned is a much better society for everybody. Well, not so fast on that end either. Not so fast on that end either. Okay, First, let's go back to the monogamy situation. And let's go back to my island situation. Let's say you had that island with 2,500 single heterosexual men and 7,500 single heterosexual women. A monogamy-oriented scenario wouldn't work for that island because you would have 5,000, a surplus of 5,000 women. Okay? A surplus of 5,000 women. Now, let's say the head of the island said, well, let's go ahead and open things up. And we're going to allow polygamous marriage. We're going to allow polygamous marriage instead of just strictly monogamy-oriented marriage. We're going to allow polygamous marriage. And that way, every man can have 3 wives of their own. Every man could have 3 wives of their own. Now, you would think on paper everybody would be happy, right? Wrong. Wrong. And I think a lot of you all know where I'm headed with this. See, here's the problem that would happen if you were to allow polygamy to take place. When it's all said and done, it ain't going to end up with each of those 2,500 men having 3 wives. Women are what's known as hypergamous. Hypergamous. Hypergamy is a concept that a lot of people in the manosphere emphasize these days, but one in particular would be Rollo Tomasi, the author of The Rational Male. That's his big issue. He talks about women's hypergamous nature. And that relates to what's known as the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule. In simple terms, if that island, that fictional island, was to open things up to polygamy, instead of a situation where you would have 2,500 men each having 3 wives, it would be more so like 500 men having 11 wives. That's what you would have. You would have about 500 men that would have 8, 9, 10, or 11 wives. That's how hypergamy works, man. You would have some men who would only have 1 wife, and you might have some men who wouldn't be able to get even 1 wife. You would have some men that wouldn't be able to get even 1 wife. Don't you think they're going to become frustrated? That's pretty much represents how society is today. Let's be real. That's how society is today. But even back in the day, it was like that. I always bring up Solomon from the Christian Bible. Look at Solomon from the Christian Bible. Solomon, man, if Solomon was alive today, man, his haters would try to kill him almost immediately. Seriously, let's be real. I'm not even trying to be funny. His haters would try to kill him immediately. For those of you, again, who might not watch all my videos, not familiar with Solomon from the Christian Bible, Solomon is a figure in the Bible who had 700 wives and 300 concubines. 700 wives and 300 concubines. And for those of you who forgot what a concubine is basically an additional lover that a married man has that his wife knows about. Like, if you fucking another woman behind your wife's back, that's a mistress. If you fucking someone in addition to your wife and your wife knows about the woman and she approves of the woman, that's known as a concubine. Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Talk about the effects of hypergamy. You can nickname hypergamy the Solomon effect. That would be the nickname you could give to hypergamy, the Solomon effect. Imagine if you had guys, let's say in the United States, now as we all know, in the United States polygamy is illegal, but let's just say hypothetically it was legal. And you had a bunch of guys in a situation like Solomon. Let's say you had guys with 100 wives and 50 concubines, or 200 wives and 100 concubines, or 500 wives and 200 concubines. Man, them dudes, man, their life would be in danger. Seriously, man. They would have to walk around with security at all times. Their life would be in danger. Because the guys who are romantically and sexually frustrated, who don't have not even one female lover, man, they would go crazy. They would go Elliot Rodger on them motherfuckers, man. They would go Elliot Rodger on them motherfuckers. So in a nutshell, without getting any longer, because I said I wanted to keep this video to 45 minutes or less, really, neither situation is ideal for everyone. Neither situation is ideal for everyone. A strictly monogamous society, a society that almost predominantly centers around strict monogamy, is not ideal for everyone, particularly the way it was in the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, and for the most part 1950s. Again, you had a lot of frustrated women. You had a lot of women, married women, who were being cheated on by their husbands. You had a lot of married women whose husbands were dumping their wives for younger, more attractive women. And then you had young women who had a promiscuous past that couldn't get married and couldn't earn a decent living on their own. So they didn't love society the way it was back then, and that's why they pushed for the second wave of feminism. But on the exact opposite end, when you have a society that allows promiscuity and polyamory, which is how our society basically is right now today, we don't allow polygamy, but we allow promiscuity and polyamory, which is polyamory is just the unmarried version of polygamy. It's the unmarried version of polygamy. What do you have? You got the 80-20 scenario going on big time. You got some guys in society, they got 3 lovers, 5 lovers, 7 lovers, 10 lovers, 20 lovers. Shoot, I know some guys, man, pimps, man, that may have like over 100 lovers simultaneously. Remember Will Chamberlain, man, the former NBA player, who's a fraternity brother, man. He wrote in his biography, man, he had sex with 20,000 women. He estimated that over the course of his adult life, he had sex with 20,000 women, man. Warren Beatty, one of my entertainment industry idols, man, he was rumored to have had sex with over 16,000 women. Then you got other guys who are still virgins at the age of 25, 30, 35, or 40. No situation is ideal for everyone. In both scenarios, some people are going to win and some people are going to lose. Again, going back to that island scenario, the only way that island scenario would work for everybody involved is if you got equal numbers. If you had 5,000 women on an island with 5,000 men, and promiscuity was banned and polyamory was banned, then monogamy would work. Because everybody would just couple up. If you had an even number of men, even number of women, and promiscuity was banned and polyamory was banned, then that's when monogamy would work. That's the only situation where strict monogamy would work. But other than that, it wouldn't work, man. It wouldn't work. In any other scenario, strict monogamy does not work. It has its flaws. Anyway, if you're a Patreon subscriber of mine, again, thank you for supporting me in the month of March. It was the most financial support I received beginning with last April. I first got on Patreon in mid-April of last year. But again, I really didn't start taking it serious until about mid to late June of last year. And I think as of today, I have 100 and somewhere between 165 and 170 Patreon subscribers. And again, I'm gonna throw out my comment to AMS. AMS owes me credit for the success of his Patreon page because I was the first one to give him advice on doing Patreon exclusive videos. And again, at first he was like, no, man, I don't need to do that. My followers love me, man. The reason they love me is because I do free shit. You ain't doing free shit no more, young brother. You ain't doing strictly free shit no more. All right, people. Patreon subscribers, join me on Thursday at 4 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to do my 1 year podcasting on YouTube anniversary episode. Join me for that. Mo 1, baby. Make it happen.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.